Welcome to Relationship Renegades on Fun for Life Radio. I'm one of your hosts, Rachele Brooke Smith.
And I'm your other host, Emilio Palafox.
And today we're really stoked because we have some super special guests, our dear friends, Dr. Jen Esquer and her awesome fiance,
Dr. Domenic Fraboni.
So Doc Jen on Instagram, Jen Esquer PT, and DPT is an internationally renowned physical therapist who specializes in helping people overcome chronic pain and maximize physical performance. As the founder of two transformative programs, the Mobility Method and the Optimal Body, she brings a unique whole body approach to strength, mobility, and pain-free living. In 2019, Jen was named one of the top 50 most influential health club professionals. Jen's easily accessible approach has garnered her more than 500,000 followers on social media and more than 5+ million views of her health and fitness videos. Jen has been featured in Shape Magazine, Self Magazine, Men's Fitness, Muscle and Fitness, and recently graced the cover of Oxygen Magazine. She was recently featured on Good Morning America and has made her appearances on CBS, The Rise podcast with Rachel Hollis, and much more. She is co-host of one of the top new shows in health called the Optimal Body podcast with her fiance, who is also a doctor of physical therapy. When they're not busy, they're doing breathwork and acro yoga together in sunny Los Angeles, California.
I love seeing you guys on Instagram, and I'm definitely excited to have you guys. For Dr. Domenic Fraboni is a doctor of physical therapy and lifestyle coach. He earned his doctorate from the Mayo Clinic School of Health Sciences in Rochester, Minnesota in 2018. He is a member of the American Physical Therapy Association, APTA, and recent APTA SA Board of Director member. In this position, he was an active advocate for the advance of national healthcare quality and access to care in the United States. Domenic was an avid coach, unified partner, and volunteer coordinator for the Special Olympics, and has assisted in coordinating events nationally for the NCAA and APTA. He has recently relocated to Los Angeles, which we're excited about, where he coaches people into their bodies using a unique approach of health and lifestyle consulting in the areas of mindset, movement, and meals. Dr. Dom believes that true human healing happens through empowering individuals to independence in their journey. As the Chief Operating Officer of the Mobility Method LLC and co-host of the Optimal Body podcast, he always hopes to continue to get this message of empowerment out to the masses. Dr. Domenic Fraboni, PT, DPT, CS, thank you guys so much for being on the show. Welcome, and we're glad you're here.
Thank you. Yeah. Quite the introduction.
Definitely. I'm realizing that if my bio is going to go second, I really need to bolster it up with some other things, because coming after the cover of Oxygen Magazine, Good Morning America. Did I put in there that I was the videographer for Good Morning America?
Hey, there it is.
It was when she was on Good Morning America. But.
I love it so much. Well, we're super excited to have you guys, and we're super excited to go pretty raw, real, and get deep with you guys about everything to do with relationships to ourselves, relationships to our partners, and relationship to the world around us. And with that, we have this kind of through line through all of our episodes of one, co-creating a space where everybody feels safe, seen, heard, and loved, and talking about this concept of killing your Superman to find your Wonder Woman.
So yeah, I don't know. I think, Dr. Jen, you had... when we were bringing it up earlier, I think you said you had heard that before. Dr. Dom, I don't know if you've heard that phrase before or what you guys even think about it. I'm not sure if you guys knew that was one of our through lines, but we can dissect it a little bit as to what that means for us. And I'm curious to see what that means for you guys and maybe in your journey. It may or may not resonate, but we're interested to hear. And we can go from there. So,
Jen, how does that show up from a female perspective? We'll start with you, and then we'll go to the male perspective in your journey, Dom. How has that shown up for you just throughout your past and now and the current time?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I first hear that line, I mean, I did hear it from you guys. So that's where I had heard it.
Yeah,
so,
all right. Woo!
So that got through, that message, I heard
that's
that.
What I want to hear.
Yes.
I'm just kidding.
But for me, when I think of Wonder Woman, I'm thinking of the woman who owns herself fully. And I think in past relationships, that's not... Either I was too afraid to do that, or I was trying to be what that person needed me to be. Also wanting to be myself and do the things for myself, but too hesitant to really fully step into that because I was afraid of what the other person would think, or that they wouldn't be supported, or, you know, whatever that might be. And so I've learned, you know, stepping into my own Wonder Woman really means owning exactly the woman that I am.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
You know, we literally last night, Rachel had this movie, I think it was called Runaway Bride.
Yeah.
Is that what it was?
Such a good movie.
She loved that, but it touches upon these things where she was always trying. I've seen it a long time ago, but I saw the tail end of it last night before going to bed, and yeah, it was a little bit like that. Like, she didn't know what kind of egg she liked. She didn't know what kind of coffee she drank. It was just like always trying to.
Well, she always ended up liking whoever she was dating.
Exactly.
She just be like, oh, I like what they like.
Yep.
And
Whatever,
I know in my story that was so true. And I too feel like I just recently, and really before getting into this relationship, it was when I first was like, actually found the courage to be, you know, to own who I was. And I don't think I'm ever perfect, but I am a lot better than I used to be.
Yeah.
And I don't feel that need to try and be something that I think Emilio wants me to be. I'm just fully me, and therefore we can actually love each other, because otherwise it's just a facade.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And what about you, Dom?
It's time, Dom, that you
Yes.
just become yourself
Yourself
already,
already.
man. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
I think that's one of the big issues for a lot of people. Is being true and authentic.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the main things that really drew me to Jen right away.
Yeah.
I realized how true and authentic she was to her and herself, regardless of what platform or media or where you were seeing her. This is a really interesting question for me, because I think there's a few layers of it for men, you know, specifically. And I think men go through a few pivotal points in their life where they start to realize this thing that is our ego, and things that make our ego flare up as a man. And when you as a man feel out of control or unsafe or whatever, you know, we tend to harden down or find our safety elsewhere. And I think a lot of men are just master compensators, as humans are, in how we hide and cover up that insecurity. And, you know, when we start to be able to open up and talk about those things as a man, I think that that's when we truly start to crack into that next level.
Yes.
And so I think that as soon as you as a guy start to be able to approach your ego, understand what really tokes it, what really flares it up, how you can quickly start to temper that, what practices you need to use within yourself to be able to heal some of those areas inside yourself, that's when I think you can start to open yourself up for a partner who is either doing that themselves or ready for a man who wants to get over some of their shit, but might need someone else to be open and be able to hold that space, which is why I really appreciate you guys having these conversations.
Yeah, I love that you said master compensators, or like masters even, you know, like let's break that down a little bit, because I think, you know, when we're talking about this, say someone's listening and they're like, okay, but how do I even get to that point? Because I'm terrified. You know, like, I'm terrified to be myself. I don't even know who I really am. You know, I think in that Runaway Bride movie, it was really showcasing of like, how do we help people and or ourselves if we ever feel confused about who we are through different chapters of life? Because I think every new chapter kind of requires a new version of us. How do you guys, I know you guys do it through your social media like crazy and through your programs, but if someone's listening right now, where's like a starting point for them if they feel lost or confused or frustrated because they don't even know who they are or how to show up in a loving, supportive relationship?
For me, one of the biggest practices that I adopted was journaling. And it wasn't something that I really ever, like, I would have journals and I would do it sometimes and then I'd be like, it would kind of drift away.
Yeah.
But when I was really in a place of being ready to dive in and trust myself and feel like, oh, I can trust myself and what I feel and who I am gets to be seen and gets to be heard, then that's when I was like, okay, if I had an experience of something, just being able to write it out and then see, how does that feel if my friends didn't have an opinion on this? How would this feel if my family didn't have an opinion on this? How would this feel if social media didn't know about this? And really starting to peel back those layers to get deeper into what is it that it means to me? Where is this coming from deeper within me? And being able to uncover that, right? Outside of everything, and you don't realize how much your hand just kind of goes. Like when you allow it to actually, like I used to be like, no, you can just talk it out. You can. Yeah. But I think it's an interesting practice to just start seeing where your hand will explore, because you'll be surprised as to what, you know, you're able to uncover in those situations.
I love that. I mean, I think now more than ever, right? It gives people an opportunity to like self-reflect, ask powerful questions, have that growth mindset. And, you know, me and Rachel, we started this, we ended it, but I think the majority of the year in the beginning, we had this program called the Optimal Being Program. Shout out to them. They do incredible work.
Yeah, so good.
But one of the many tools and stuff was like, and everyone calls it something different. Essentially, it could just be journaling, but like it was just mind shifters. And you would essentially have this like statement, right? And then whatever triggers, whatever came up, you just start writing. Like you said, the hand continues to write. And then obviously like, it's just a bunch of random stuff and you keep writing until you just can't write anymore. And then all of a sudden the stuff really starts to surface, which I think is a fantastic thing to start doing. But also like, you know, just I guess having this concept of like 1% better. I feel like people want to do everything all at once. And I feel like anytime you can just like dedicate some time to do that, like we are what we repeatedly do. So let's just like try that and like stick to it for a while before giving it up. Because I think, you know, you can build that muscle, whatever it is.
Well, I think that kind of goes into the Superman complex, or like the illusion. We talk like the illusion of the Superman that we all have within us of like anytime we're like, okay, I used to do this all the time and it messed me up. I was like, I'm going to meditate for an hour tomorrow and I'm going to write a book at the same time. And then I'm going to run 15 miles and then I'm going to do it every day, all the time. And then I would never be able to keep those commitments to myself. And then I started to realize like, oh, that's why I don't trust myself. And that's why I'm having a hard time loving myself and being honest with others because I'm not keeping my commitments. Dom, did you ever experience anything like that with like the Superman, or breakdown for you, especially from like a male perspective? Because I know Emilio talks about this a lot, but like the Superman.
And we haven't even got a chance to see kind of what it means for us. But yeah, I guess we could just throw it right away and just kind of see what that means for you guys.
I mean, kind of how you're talking about, if you want to take it all down at once, that's super hard to approach. I mean, I approach a lot of things like the boxer analogy. If you're dealing with something in life that's really got you against the ropes, like they're the heavyweight champ. Like whether it's an addiction, whether it's something in your relationship that you just can't seem to handle, like that thing at that moment is the heavyweight champ, and it just seems like it can put you down so easily. But with the consistency and with the training of doing things consistently, like that's how you train yourself up to be able to handle and manage that a little bit better. And for me, it's a lot about, for people, horizon events, or like Jen mentioned, journaling. Journaling was definitely a part of, you know, where I felt a lot of personal development starting to kind of fall away. But is it breath work? Is it prayer? Is it meditation? Like, what is it that you call that thing that somehow seems to help you uncover things a little bit? You know, Jen also referred to it as this uncovering process. It's not all going to happen in one day, but with just like little committed dedication to it, even if it's 30 seconds a day, that's where you can start just learning so much more about yourself.
Yeah. I love you said 30 seconds a day, because sometimes that's all just to get ourselves to start, you know, like just once you start, and then you're loving doing it, you know, but before you know it, it's been like 15 minutes and you're like, oh, I'm really doing this now.
Yeah. And one thing too, I wanted to be able to share too, that I honor and respect of what you had said earlier, especially for men, because like stereotypically speaking, right, like women normally have more opportunity to share amongst women in circles of like talk through or vent through and share what's going on in their minds. But like stereotypically men don't. And so even when you were saying earlier, I just want to honor and respect you for that, because, you know, in our journeys, it's good to see kind of like, you know, moving away slowly but surely from toxic masculinity to more of like, you know, just a healthy, you know, balance of masculinity and femininity. And so I just wanted to honor and respect you for saying what you said. But then also, one thing I remember seeing on your Instagram, I think we get vulnerable on this show, right? Yeah. We get raw and real about stuff. And I think when we share those things, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, we let others kind of shine their light as well, right? Because like in doing that, it's just like, oh my gosh. And it's like, we're all about, you know, being this rising tide that lifts all boats. And it's just like, we're just here to, you know, to help and to serve. And I think you guys are very much doing that in your own, you know, strengths and gifts. But it doesn't necessarily have to be this Instagram post that I shared, but, you know, I remember you talking about something that you were going through in high school. And I don't know if I should say it or not, but like you probably have lots of vulnerable moments as we do.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but it was sure, the Instagram thing that I saw that I just loved, because it's just raw and real. And have you asked Rachel?
Yeah.
Over my time of, you know, I've had to let go of a lot of like friendships when I used to live in Houston and Austin, and and a lot of relationships. And then I started to acquire all these beautiful relationships, and especially with brotherhood, especially with men. I so much appreciate like certain values, like the ones that you not only talk about, exhibit, but truly embody. Like you can just tell. And I'm like on the search for that. And I think a lot of good men are as well. And I think like by having more men like that, we can show up better for our spouses, our wives, our kids, our friends, everything. Especially in the world that we need. Like right now, I feel like women are leading in a great way and men are leading in a great way, but we can do more. And so I digress. I just want to say that I honor that. And the Instagram post that I remember seeing was you having some issues kind of, it was going through the bathroom a lot. And
for sure.
Yeah. And I don't know too much. You can kind of explain more the science behind that or what actually happened.
Yeah, I'm really curious now. You should definitely explain more.
No, but yeah, and we all go through different stuff because
I've had that issue before. I feel like if you're a human, you've probably had some issues with that. But especially given our lifestyles. But
it was a vulnerable share, and I wanted to kind of just like, the opportunity came up right now to talk about that. And I was like, okay, this is going to be a great vulnerable moment to share and what that journey was like for you and where you're at now.
I mean, how long do we have?
Yeah.
Because especially if we're going to relate it into like masculinity, toxic masculinity, like the place I was coming from growing up was in a football locker room, especially in college. You know, you're in a football locker room, you're with that testosterone, masculine driven energy, and that's where I think a lot of men start to compensate, build this external armor. I've heard other people talk about the armor that men build on, whether it's just the muscle that they build on or spending time in the weight room, spending time exercising. That was one of my compensations. How can you put up the biggest numbers and be the manliest man in the locker room? And what you're talking about me sharing kind of came from coming from that environment, knowing what some of those men are like. But then I started talking with some of the guys after football, and some of them were having some of these same issues that I was having. And they were talking with me about how they would stand up from meetings and work and just wet themselves a little bit and have issues with incontinence. And I was having some issues with where basically what I would deal with is called more of an urge incontinence, where I'm sitting in the room with a patient and, it hits you and you can't hold it and you don't feel like you're going to be able to hold it in. And so for the longest time, I could manage it. I could hold it in, run out of the room and go to the bathroom. But there was a few times that I would leak myself and I would just be like, what is going on? And, to kind of come full circle and say, that's where I started to realize the strength in, where we have this masculine energy that we don't want to show any weaknesses, that we want to show we're in control, that we want to show that we are this safe and stable base for ourselves, for our partner, for whatever, so we just hide those things. We hide what we're going through, but in reality that as a man just starts to perpetuate the issue because you never fully address it. You never fully accept it, and you never fully open yourself up to welcome people in to help you with that.
For sure.
And so in the first time that I did share, it was after other guys started coming to me as a doctor of physical therapy asking me like, what can I do about this? How can I work on this stuff? And I started giving them recommendations. I started doing it more myself. And then I started sharing more publicly what was going on with me. And that's when, I started to realize all those cliche things like an army, a general in battle, like he's always aware of his weakness because as an army general, you can generally use that as your greatest strength by setting a trap or by setting. So that's where I started to realize this thing that I'm perceiving as a weakness or something I need to be ashamed of is actually, once I start training and figuring out how to address that, I'm addressing some of my biggest weaknesses and actually becoming so much more well-rounded and strong as a person because of that, and opening up the ability to grow my circle and help other people heal while I'm at it. So that's my long/short-winded answer of all that stuff.
Well, no, I love what you said about too. When we open up about the things we're actually going through, we allow space for not only others to heal, but for people to know that they're not alone. We talk a lot about like that we're all always going through something that most of us know nothing about. Like you walk down the street, you see a stranger, and it's easy to forget that stranger also has challenges and pain and struggle and dreams and goals, and to be more aware of the human condition and more compassion, and to open up about those things. And I think actually one of the things I respect most about Jen is that you were so open about some really difficult things that you went through in your past, especially, a past relationship. And I would love, this is a pretty deep question, but I think, all of us here, or most all of us here have probably gone through something of either being cheated on or cheating on a partner. And, I know for both Emilio and I, we've been through both of those things, and it's really difficult to own. But I think when we talk about that, and, how to break through that so you can stop repeating old patterns, or so you don't bring it into new relationships. It's how we actually heal and help others heal as well. So in your past, I know that you talk openly about, you were cheated on. What was your process of healing from that? And how did you learn how to not take that into new relationships, especially this new beautiful one that you're in?
Yes. Man, it's been a journey. And I think that's the first thing that people need to, be able to recognize and appreciate, that there's no just a flip of a switch where it's just, now I'm good, and it's going to come in waves, and it still could rear its ugly head of a certain trigger that can set me off. And I get to be the one that acknowledges that and recognizes it and continues to say, okay, now what? How am I going to continue on? And for me, in that relationship, again, because I couldn't get to the point with that person that I wanted to get to, it was like, all right, let me just keep working on myself. What more can I do to be the person that person will finally accept? That's what I felt like I had to keep doing. But on that journey, I was kind of discovering myself.
Yeah.
And so and I always knew, and that's the thing I think we always know, right? We always know there's something down there that just doesn't feel right.
Yes.
And if I actually freaking listen to it, whether you're the person who cheated or got cheated on, if you actually acknowledge that, you would have stepped away a lot sooner.
Yeah.
But, I needed the universe to kind of slap me in the face and
For sure.
to really get woken up and learn the lessons, and I'm appreciative for it.
Yeah.
And once I received the information, it was just this awakening where it did kind of feel like a switch of like, oh, I get to trust that feeling that I've had, that feeling that something's not right. And the more that I continue to try, I'm not actually ever addressing the root because it's just not right. And I never really listened to that or trusted that. And so once the information came out, it was just like, it was like a sigh of relief, like, oh my God, I can trust myself. And it was the most beautiful gift I think I could have ever received. And so from that, then it was like, okay, now I get to do the work of, when did I lose trust in myself? When did I stop listening? Why did I stop listening? And so from there it was, I talked to different therapists and healers, somatic therapists. I went to workshops. I went to Christine Hassler's workshop. That's like a women, women's retreat kind of thing. And I thought, I've already done a lot of this work. I've been in personal development. But it was just new layers to unpack.
For sure. You think you healed something. And it's like, there's another thing there.
Another layer.
There. Really? I thought I healed from this long time ago. No, it's still there. For sure.
And, it was just this process of continuing to catch myself in the awareness of, where am I not trusting myself? Where am I not being true? Where am I not being honest with me and with other people? And I can still remember, like, one of the first times that I had met Dom, and he was coming out to LA, and he had already been out into LA, but he was coming back out, and my family wanted to get together. And in the past, that was always like a point of contention, like seeing my family. And so I remember like voice noting him, and I was like, so my family wants to get together and I'm really sorry, but maybe you'd want to go. I don't know. And like, tiptoeing around it. And then I voice noted right back right after. And I was like, you know what? Actually, they're getting together. I would love you to be there. And that's it. Before he could even say anything. I was like,
love it.
But that was me in the practice of catching myself and how am I truly showing up? What is it that I really want? What is it that I'm asking? And being clear in that. And being able to, it's awareness, right? Self-awareness. It's awareness with another person, and continuing to do the work and ride the waves.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. It was so powerful. I love that you just talked about the evolutionary journey. I think it's so easy. Like, I was even thinking about this when I asked the previous question of like, what can people do to start? And you're like, journaling. I could see someone listening, even myself listening to stuff. I'm like, journaling. Like, give me a harder thing to do, because I think sometimes as humans, we overcomplicate things and we want something to be, whether it's like a magic pill or some like crazy thing we have to do. When in reality, it's a lot of just, I want to call it simple, because it's not necessary. It is simple, but it's not always easy. It is very challenging sometimes when you're not when you're feeling a lot of stuff to just open up a paper and start writing, but once you start, it all kinds of comes. And I wanted you to get to say what you wanted to say.
No, it's okay. Yeah.
But I just think for people listening that might be like, oh, okay, journaling, workshops, blah, blah, blah. I've heard all this stuff before,
right.
But we keep hearing it because it really works if we actually do it.
Sure.
It's just getting ourselves to actually do it. And in that topic, is there something like when you guys know that you need to, go to a workshop or read this book or write in your journal or do the breathwork session or jump in the cold plunge, is there something that you guys have found that works for you that maybe people could adopt to help you actually just do it rather than talk yourself out of it or justify why you shouldn't?
And while you guys are thinking about that,
Yes.
if you guys are just tuning in, you're listening to Relationship Renegades on Fun for Life Radio. We're here with Dr. Dom and Dr. Jen over here.
Yes.
What do you guys think about that?
So I think this is the really difficult thing, because earlier I made a mention on horizon events, and I think that people really struggle with self-development when they feel like they need to force something. Because if you're starting a practice and you're feeling like you're forcing it, and you feel that way for longer than 3 to 5 days, stop or change what you're doing and don't keep hitting your head against a wall. Because journaling, I've heard of so many people who are like, oh, I've done it, I've journaled, I'm over it. And then they'll find the right practice, the right journaling practice, and then they'll fall in love with it. And so a lot of it's just finding the certain prompt or the different approach that suits you best. A few that have worked for me really well that I've done at different points in life. One of them is just simple affirmations. Find 3 to 5 things that you really resonate powerfully with. And one of mine is empowerment to independence, empowerment to independence. I will help to empower to independence. That stayed true for myself. That stayed true for the people I worked with. I'm just here to help empower people to independence. And I would write that down along with 2 or 3 other things every day. And that's all I did. Break that
down a little bit more too, so people really understand. What does that mean to you? Empower to independence.
So when I started writing that specifically down was after I had gotten in a bad car accident, and I'd say it was during one of the times, to keep it relevant to the conversation, that I was killing a Superman in my life. The Superman that I thought that I was needing to be, the go, go, go mentality that I couldn't pull away from, and life hit me in the face, and I was having a lot of post-concussive issues and memory issues, and that's when some physical anxieties and night terrors really started popping up in my life. Yeah, so to me, I just started attributing that to the little bit every day of breath work and doing some daily journaling and some meditative / prayer stuff that really helped my anxiety just get cut away. Night terrors were gone. The anxieties I was feeling and memory issues started to kind of melt away. And for me, it was really just that consistency. And once I noticed the action I was doing affected the way I felt, and I actually started noticing those differences, that was to me empowerment to independence. Okay, I did these things and I'm feeling different. I want to be able to help other people do that.
Oh, I love that. I'm happy you broke that down too, because I think it brought it to a whole different level, because it's really empowerment to independence, and independence to almost this essence of freedom from the suffering you're going through, but knowing that you could do that for yourself, and then also helping others find how to do that for themselves. And one of the things you guys both, really focus on is living pain-free. And I really want to get into that kind of concept of pain-free in our physical body and learning how to trust our body and be grateful for our body regardless of what it feels like or looks like, which I think can be pretty challenging and is a really cool conversation. But I also want to leave people on a cliffhanger, because we want to take a quick break to get into a rapid fire segment. We're going to ask Jen and Dom some rapid fire questions. They know none of these questions yet, so it'll be really fun. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're going to get to rapid fire questions and then break down into the next segment of really finding this pain-free living in our body, gratitude for our body, and trust in ourselves and our relationship. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. You're listening to Relationship Renegades on Fun for Life Radio. All right, welcome back to Relationship Renegades on Fun for Life Radio. We are getting into the rapid fire segment. Babe, take it away.
All right, these are going to be really deep, but you got to just be rapid fire in the session. So,
nervous.
Jen, Doc Jen, we'll ask you first. Ladies first. What was your favorite cartoon show growing up?
Rugrats.
Rugrats.
And why?
Or just...
It was the first thing that came to my head.
That's good.
All right, what about you?
What about you, Dr. Dom?
Rocket Power because of woogity 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 woogity.
I don't know if I've ever seen Rocket Power.
That's a good one.
Really?
If anybody understands that, then it's
dang.
like a bunch of skater guys and gals that were just like tear up.
Oh,
tear up
I
the
do know
town.
that. Yeah.
And they would
I
always
need
do
to
their
go
little
look this up.
handshake, and they would go woogity 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 woogity. And I just
Now we're gonna have to do that secret handshake.
That'll be good.
Rocket Power.
every time we see you.
Oh my gosh, I love it. All right, so we're going to start with, but we'll go back to
Next
Doc
question.
Jen first. Okay, so next question. What advice did you get that was most rewarding?
I would say the allowance that it's okay to feel my emotions and to cry. That was a big one. Because
that
I
is
was
a
always
huge
trying to
one.
no, I shouldn't cry. I'm not supposed to. I'm not, And then having that allowance opened up a lot.
I could totally resonate with that. I think that's probably mine as well. And I think for everyone listening, that's a huge, take that in.
Yeah.
Take
Soak
it in.
that in.
It's okay to cry. All right, Dr. Dom, what about you? What advice did you get that was most rewarding?
I think that, I don't know, taking the road less traveled, looking for the experiences, that's kind of one of the pieces of advice I always took and ran with and really resonated with, because it was, when everybody was going for the standardized whatever, I was always trying to find the experience outside of the classroom so I could look for how it applied in the real world. So I would say try to grow your breadth of experiences, because you'll learn a lot more about humans that way.
Oh, yeah. That's
I love
so
that.
True.
People are always trying to build their resume, and I forget who talks about this, but it's like, what about your life resume?
Totally.
And really building that. And Rachel knows it's like, I love this, by the way, we're in the holidays now, and like Rachel's family, instead of exchanging gifts for holidays, they, share experiences. And so like they usually travel, pre-COVID or whatever all the time during that, just to share experiences. And I think that's what it's just all about, right? Just a culmination of experiences with people and to have these great stories and all that. So I love that.
Really.
Let's create some experiences.
Yes.
All right. So second question. Here we go.
Well,
Doc
third
Jen.
question. Your second question.
Yes. Whatever you say, love. Whatever you say, love. You're right, babe.
All right.
Okay, Doc Jen. If you could win any award, what would it be and why?
Award.
Man,
I know.
It's the tough.
I could win
It's
an
so
award.
hard to do this rapid fire because there are.
I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind was back in gymnastics days, right? But now it's not I don't want to win an award on physical performance. I would say now it's the award that I helped as however many people. If I could help 1 million people and win an award for that, amazing.
Yes,
or if
I
I could
love
help, and get an award for getting rid of the most pain or something crazy. I don't
We'll
care.
create that for you, Jen.
Thank you.
Who got rid of the most pain in the world?
If you guys know of an award like that, and if you're part of our Relationship Renegades tribe on Facebook, go ahead and right now
there.
comment on it. Comment in the tribe.
Nominate Doc Jen and Doc Dom.
If you know about the award, please comment in our tribe. And if you guys aren't part of the tribe, it's Relationship Renegades on Facebook. Join the
it's a
tribe.
free group.
We're going to have more experiences there. Dr. Dom, to you, sir.
I think I just thought of my brilliant answer.
He always gets to go second.
I know. Next one he goes. I'm asking you first, buddy.
I had some time to think, but along the same lines of what Jen said, award of what do I mean to help the most people or something like that. So I would say, considering we're in business now together, some sort of award for our app that we're developing, that it's the greatest health app in, all of
that
the
would
land.
be a good reward. Okay.
Because
This is
that means that our app is doing amazing and getting information out to people, because there's just such few places that you can get good quality health information about pains in your bodies and trust it. So
Now,
I think that what Jen's doing and what we're doing with the Mobility Method company is amazing.
Now you not only with the Mobility Method, and you guys also have the Optimal Body. And I know that's the podcast. Is that an app as well, or is it just the
gonna be an
podcast, or going to be an app?
So I guess the company is just called the Mobility Method, which is I was referring to the company, but she has multiple programs.
I do have an app, DocJenFit, the Optimal Body. It's not the best. I will say that right now. Not.
But that's the exciting thing.
Just wait.
Just wait.
This is about the journey.
So we're getting
It's
into
true.
app development.
They're
soon.
both the embodiment of just having a mission to help and just doing it, without it being perfect. Because I look at we talk about this a lot, of like all of the things out in the world today that were not where they started, but they just started.
Yeah.
They just started.
Seriously.
Like every amazing thing we have ever wasn't there always, but they started and they kept evolving and then one day it was like, wow, this is incredible. So I'm excited for your guys' app. I'm very excited for your guys' app.
Yes.
All right, well, moving on to the final
winning.
question. You're going first this time, Dom.
All right.
If you had access to a time machine, where would you go and when?
Oh my goodness.
And why?
All right.
Yeah, that's tough.
Harder than the deep questions.
Yep.
Huh?
It's going to be fast. You don't get a lot of time on this one.
I would go sometime that's the thing, you wouldn't know when into the future. I'm fascinated to understand how humankind is going to be able to weather issues of like population and living on this world. So I would love to fast forward to a time to understand, like, do we start living on a different planet? Do we live on the moon or Mars, or learn a way to deal with what's happening in our world,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Would you choose to stay, or would you be the
I'd come
Elon
back.
Musk,
I'd
and would
come
you go?
Okay.
But you would come back like Interstellar, where Matthew McConaughey comes back, and it's like 120 years later.
That's tough. I don't know how well they could guarantee. What kind of technology are we talking
Technology.
about? Technology.
The podcast has changed now. The radio show has done a twist
Back
here,
to the
guys. We're going to
future,
talk
where I go to a
about.
specific day.
Okay.
Frank Scott.
That's a
That's
great
a
one.
great answer. That is really great.
Good
All right,
stuff.
Dr. Jen, now that you've had a little bit more time, if you had access to a time machine, where and when would you go?
Oh, I think I would like to go back and see my young self and how because I remember like there's
Oh my
photos
gosh,
of
that
me
would
where
be
I
weird.
was like, I'm like in this little swimsuit and I'm like very like 5 years old and a little like, wow, Mom, did you let me pose like that? Like grabbing my booty, my hamstrings are all really nice. Ooh, I had good hamstrings back then. But I'm like, that girl, like freaking lived it out and didn't care and like came into crazy poses and was just like, here I am.
Yes,
And I'm like,
I love
keep
that.
doing you, girl.
Yes.
That's what I would say.
I love that so much. When you did gymnastics, right? Growing up too. So I too totally resonate with, and I think so much we talk a lot about, like, healing your inner child or getting back to your, and everybody's experiences of being young was so different. But I think we all have at least some time in our life, even if it's before we can remember it, it's subconscious, when we were so free. Like we were so free from all of the things that hold us back so much later on in life. We were, we ran around naked, we didn't care, and it's like you said whatever you wanted to say, and you were just curious about life. And so I love that answer, and I think that would be so cool.
Well, I think that kind of, this is a perfect transition to get back to the show in terms of that. Really, I guess we can kind of share a little bit about what we had talked about in the beginning of like killing your Superman to find your Wonder Woman. Essentially, it's that kind of message of what you just talked about now and what you were talking earlier, Dom, is, for me, it's like, the whole process of unbecoming, rather than where people are trying to become something. It's just the process of unbecoming to go back to that inner child, that person that was liberated and free and independent, just whatever, being their self. Like, I think people think that they're broken, they need to be fixed. And it's like, at the very core of yourself, your true self, you're this unlimited, beautiful being that it's that. And I think through life, and I know I'm preaching to the choir with all of us here, but for those listening, it's like this: every experience that we have, we will create a character to help us feel safe in that moment. Oh, and I will use synonymously like characters with walls, right? So like I had so many characters I built over time that I didn't know. I had so many walls I built over time that I didn't know, until I finally kind of through the work. And I love that you guys talk about, both had mentioned it, like there's different types of work. And so figuring out what resonates for you, right? There's different paths up the mountain. Find the one that resonates with you. Keep doing it. 1% better every day. But like through that journey, you find, like, at least for me, and it's just semantics, right? For me, I call them characters or walls. Like, oh wow, I had this character that was like, it's not serving me anymore. It helped me to get to where I'm at now, but I don't need that anymore, and I'm fine. And kind of really maybe even having a conversation with that character and saying, thank you, I love you, and kind of departing, and then that kind of wall breaking down over and over and over. So like, this. So for me, it's like when we say killing your Superman, it's like this illusion of Superman, which we've already been talking about, but to break down all those walls, to eliminate all those characters, to find that inner child that's already beautiful, that's already within you, that you already are, that's the real Superman that always was there. And so,
or the real Wonder Woman.
Or the real Wonder Woman. Yeah. So we, I don't think we can reiterate that enough.
Yes.
That I think, is really beautiful. Like you just brought up about, your child just like is so free and loving,
loving.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, and I think we want to get back into, I want you to get to your question that you wanted to bring back up again after we break again real fast, and we'll come back and take a deep dive
for sure
into this concept of finding gratitude for our body, regardless of what it feels like or looks like, and that there really are powerful ways that we can learn from both of you guys on how to, if we have aches and pains, how to naturally heal them, really, And so stay tuned. You're listening to Relationship Renegades on Fun for Life Radio. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. You're listening to Relationship Renegades on Fun for Life Radio. We're here with Doc Jen and Doc Dom. I love that your names are so fun to say together.
Yeah.
It's like, that's
They
really fun.
They are.
It's
Doc Jen.
I'm a little,
Doc Dom.
Emilio and Rachel doesn't have that same
What?
Doc Jen and Doc Dom, babe.
What? I think so. We used to have ER. Emilio and Rachel was like the ER.
The emergency room. Like,
Oh, cute.
come to the ER, we'll save you.
The new ER,
new
right?
ER.
The new ER with some functional ER stuff. But anyway.
And talking about that, first I want to get into, because I know recently you've been doing the Grateful for My Body challenge that I just thought,
I think it's so incredible.
This is so cool, because people do challenges like, the 20 push-up challenge, or the no eating challenge, or whatever challenge you see. Social challenges are crazy out there. And I was like, gosh.
Maybe that was theirs last week.
Oh, dang it,
I'm just
sorry.
kidding. They did that the one beforehand too, babe. Come on now.
Okay, well, let's talk about the past, but in the present moment. We'll talk about the kind of like what is the Grateful for My Body challenge and why? Like what made you start this?
Yeah, so the first time I even launched into the mobility method, when I first created my online program, I came up with a free week challenge called Grateful for Mobility, and getting people back. And it was like, to me, the easiest thing. 2 simple mobility exercises every day, and it took like 10 to 15 minutes, and at the end of 7 days, you can either continue your journey and continue exploring in the mobility method, or you got to learn some stuff.
Yeah.
And it was crazy, the responses that I got from what I thought were the most simple exercises ever, right? And the whole point was like, do we even realize how much you don't even you can raise your hand over your head. People can't do that.
Yeah.
You get out of bed and you have feet that you can stand on. Some people don't.
Yeah.
Like, you take for granted these things until I have back pain and I need a stretch. Until I can't lift my arm anymore and my shoulder hurts.
Yeah.
We take advantage of our body until a pain point. And so my whole point was to bring people back into the present moment in their bodies. And it's always been great, but I wanted, especially in this year, 2020, I wanted something deeper, like
it's
7
been a perfect
days.
year. What are you talking about? It's been amazing. Nothing's gone wrong.
I wanted something to bring people even more so into their bodies. And that's what the Optimal Body does. It really allows people to touch on mobility, foundational core work, where we're talking diaphragm, pelvic floor, all of that. And then some functional movement workouts that you could do at home. And so I wanted more than just a week. And that's where I was like, let me do a 30-day Grateful for My Body. Because and we had weekly intention goal settings. We had daily self-care checklist on top of all the workouts, on top of the education. Because at the end of the day, when you start putting in these little practices, which is what we've all talked about, these tiny little things are really the thing that's going to make the greatest change over time.
Yeah. No, I love that you said that. And so I recently also did, it was like a summit called What We Crave. And we were talking a lot about like emotional eating and people who, that I know in my past, especially as, an actress and a model, like you've done fitness cover, campaigns and magazine photo shoots and stuff like that, that I'm sure at some point that just as a human, especially if you live in today's world, you have some sort of body image issues that may come up. And I know for myself throughout different chapters of my life, it's kind of like, it just ebbs and flows through all of it. But what's helped me so much is learning how to switch from criticism and judgment to gratitude for what it can do. And so I was like, when I saw your thing, I was like, oh, yes, this is it. Rather than, really have this, I do this regular practice of, almost like touching each part of my body and saying, thank you. Like, thank you, heart, for beating. Exactly. Thank you, eyes, for seeing. And imagining what it would feel like if for some reason that stops, like if all of a sudden your heart stops beating, I mean, like you're going to be super grateful for your heart, and if all of a sudden you can't see, and just imagining that, you're going to be super grateful just for your eyes. And so all of these body image issues that can come up can be, I don't know, that was always really helpful for me. In your world of work, how have you seen that, and how have you helped people, or how can you help people that might be listening? It's like, okay, that sounds cool and all, but like I'm really struggling with my image and maybe, with weight issues or just any sort of body image issues. What kind of advice or tips and tricks or tools can you give to our listeners?
Well, even before you just dive into the details of that, I just wanted to say too, just to add, like, even that alone, right? Because I mean, a lot of the times, especially now, because of the news and everyone listening and getting a lot of fear and who knows what's happening in their life, right? We can get, we create stories in our heads. We're mainly living in our heads, right? In the past or the future. And I love that you said, like, you wanted to go deeper so that they get into the present moment for all the reasons. But also, the fact that just, I'm sure as you're going through like the eyes and then thankful for your legs and like all the cascade of like healthy chemicals that arise when you like get into that felt sense, like true felt sense, when you really feel it, like actually what's happening in the body. And I don't know if you want to share that as well, but I just wanted to say, like, that alone is profound. And then I'm sure you kind of have some great exercises and great things as well. But like that alone is so profound. And I think sometimes people think like, it's like, kind of like what you were saying earlier, babe, like they sound so simple, but these things that are so simple, when you do them the right way, they are really profound. Yeah.
That's the thing. It should be simple. Like everyone is looking for the next best doctor that's going to heal me, the next best thing. And even like I read an email that I got from someone the other day, and she just said, she's been through all these doctors and all these things, and then she did one of the mobility flows from the challenge, and she felt, and all of a sudden all her pain went away, and that was the thing that helped. But I'm like, but that's not the thing, you're still, if pain came back and then you did the flow again and it didn't work, then it didn't work. Right?
That's big,
It's not, we have to stop blaming people to fix us and start taking like on the simplest practices. And that's really what I wanted to get within the challenge. Did you sleep? Are you drinking water? And so one of the goals was like drinking 16 ounces of water before you had your coffee. Yeah. Because then at least you got your water intake started, right? Huge, instead of just having the tea or having the coffee first thing in the morning, which is the thing I used to do all the time.
I keep telling my mom, I'm like, Mom, what are you doing?
Drink water first.
Water first,
Well, it's crazy, like even the simplest of things, people are like, oh, that doesn't really make that big of a difference. But actually it really does. Because
you're not going to increase mobility. You're not going to feel things differently. You're not going to gain strength. Like, especially with mobility. Like, if you're stuck not being able to touch your toes and you're foam rolling and you're doing all the things, it's like, but are you even addressing the fluids within your body? Yeah. Our fluids have to be able to move in order for our fascia to glide, in order for us to get into different positions. Yeah. So if I'm not even addressing the way I recover and the fluid intake that I'm having, the nutrients that I'm intaking, you can do all the mobility and foam rolling you want. It's not going to make a difference.
Key.
So huge. Well, and Dom, as you're listening to this, like the work that you do with your clients, like how... what are some like tips or tools or tricks that you've found that have really worked with your clients of, because I know you talk about like mindset, mobility and meals.
Movement and meals.
I think that just like even what Jen's talking about right now and how health and pain is so multivariate. Mm-hmm. And as humans, we like to be able to say, okay, we did this thing and it resulted in this outcome.
Yeah.
And again, if we do the same thing later in life and it results in a different outcome, then it's so easy again for us to say like, oh, now that doesn't work. But it's hard for us as humans to look at things as a whole picture and say, okay, these are the things I've been doing lately. Why might that be resulting at the place I'm at in life right now? And that's where journaling comes in, and understanding that along with an exercise practice or a practice to address pain or some sort of symptoms in your life, it also needs to come with building the practice of mindset and resilience and accountability and understanding how that all fits into the picture, because knowing that it might not be easy to be consistent with that, it might not be easy to do it for the 5th week when you haven't noticed a ton of difference in the first 4 weeks, to continue on that path to have that accountability, resilience, understand, oh, I'm just having a sore day, okay, what do I do in this situation? And kind of using it as your own self-experiment to just not give up. And that's where with what Jen does with the Optimal Body membership is very similar to how I want to approach clients anyway, to help them understand it's not one workout, it's not one thing specifically. You have to be focusing on all these things in your life, having a good mindset.
Yeah.
We're introducing different meal things in, because if you're not paying attention to what nutrition you're putting in your body and what inflammation that might be perpetuating or what different processes that might be helping or hurting, then we're not looking at the whole picture. So I think my biggest message is the mindset, movement, and meals. That's the reason I use those 3 things, because for me it encompasses a lot of the variables that we need to look at if we're going to really dive into our health.
Yeah, and one of the basic, most easiest things that Dom and I both connected on first initially, but the thing that we draw into every client, so every in-person client, and then everything that we try to do online as well, start with breath work. Because if you can understand how to manipulate your breath, you understand how that feels in your body. And it's going to be different for every person. There's no one perfect method. There's no one thing. But if you start to understand how to control your breath, you can control the way that you feel in your body. And it can be the simplest breath practices, right? And I've had clients of 5 years all of a sudden start to cry because all their pain went away. And they're breathing.
Breathing.
And Dom has had incredible stories as well in the hospital of people who couldn't take pain medication and all of a sudden can start to do rehab when they've had shattered pelvis. Like it can be so powerful in the way that it perceives pain within the body.
Yeah.
What are some of you guys' favorite breath works or breath techniques? I know there's so many out there. What are some of your go-tos or something that you love?
Well, and just what Jen said is like you're going to experience it different based on kind of where your nervous system sits. And when I talk about the nervous system, we're talking about this sympathetic or parasympathetic system. It's the autonomic nervous system, which is basically means automatic. Like, it just basically reacts based on what environment our body's in. But what we're learning is through breath, you can kind of control or influence what we thought was this automatic system. So what I would really recommend, we can tell what our favorites are, but what I would recommend is say like you want to explore breath work every month for an entire year, try to commit to a different kind of breath work. So if you did box breathing, what we call just basic box breathing for a month, I think that's an amazing place to start. That's just equal parts in with a hold and then out with a hold. So if you did 4 seconds for each of those, like 4-second inhale, 4-second hold, 4-second exhale, 4-second hold, generally out in the nose and out the mouth. That's a great place to start for you just to be like, okay, what does it feel like to have balance, inhale and exhale, which referring to the nervous system is more like balancing the sympathetic and the parasympathetic input you're getting from breath.
Yeah.
That's kind of a base level to put it to. It's a little sciencey, but
hopefully that makes sense.
Well, I love that you said to try out different things. Like even that kind of went back to what we talked about earlier, like experiencing more. Like try out different things in life. Otherwise, we'll never really know. So I love that you said try out different kinds. On top of the box breathing. Jen, what's another technique that you really love?
I mean, one thing that I really like doing is just getting people to experience longer exhales and shorter inhales.
Mm-hmm.
And because we know that if we can extend the exhale, then we help to turn off that sympathetic system. So that means I'm automatically going to turn on that parasympathetic, that rest, relax, digest. So even when I have stomach aches, if I've eaten stuff that I know my body probably doesn't like, rather than clenching and getting in a ball and getting tight, if I actually wanted my body to digest, I do shorter inhales, longer exhales. If I'm feeling pain, spasm, stress in my body, shorter inhale, longer exhale. Like we've been taught if we need to relax, we take a long, deep inhale.
Yeah,
we rise our shoulders up. We only focus on an inhale. We don't focus on an exhale. So I want you to flip that. It can be the simplest thing. I'm going to take a shorter inhale, about 2 to 4 seconds. Maybe I can hold it for 2 to 4 seconds, but then I'm going to try to extend that exhale as long as possible. And especially if I hum, so him and I do it where we'll start like the breath pattern and then we'll go into humming together. And even, especially when we hum, we're now closing our mouth and doing it from our nose. We release more nitric oxide, which opens up the blood vessels, getting the blood flowing, getting more oxygen. And we help to stimulate what's called the vagus nerve, which is, again, just going to tap onto that parasympathetic rest, relax, digest, so that everything starts to feel better. So I guarantee, like, if you are in pain, just try it. Just try it.
Yeah. If you're listening right now, start humming right now. You're driving your car.
And it just feels really
just
good,
long.
too.
Exactly.
You know? Like, it really does. There's something that goes up in your body. It's like,
relaxing.
oh, like, I'm here. You know? It's like this sense of, get it, babe. Just keep humming.
It's funny how good that feels, too.
It really is true.
Yeah.
It feels really good. And again, we're talking about things that some people listening, again, if you're listening to Relationship Renegades on Fun for Life Radio, some of these things are so simple. Like, as simple as breathing. Something we do all day, every day, all the time. But we weren't really taught. It wasn't like we had math, science, and breath class, you know, which would be really freaking cool.
Really cool.
And really helpful to understand, like, the thing, like, the remote control to my brain, to my systems, my nervous system is my breath. And nobody taught us from a young age how powerful that was. And, you know, so I think if you're listening and you're like, oh my gosh, they're talking about breathing, like tuning out, you know, tune in, because it really is, you know, if we do have physical pain and we want to, you know, heal that, just start, and you can start right now in your car while you're driving, or, you know, wherever you are, is to just take some deep breaths.
Well, I like too, like that you talked about, you know, well, even if you're listening and if you're like, you know, notice how you're breathing right now, like while you're listening to this, right? Because I think most of us subconsciously will hold our breath during certain times. And it's like, just to have that conscious breath every day of like, let me just see how I'm breathing is huge. But I also like to kind of like go a little bit deeper, how you talked about the autonomic and then converting that to more being in control. And I feel like the reason why we're bringing all these things up, the reason why we loved you guys in the relationship podcast was when we talk about relationship to ourselves or to others, the world around us, like whether it's in pain or mobility or your breath or everything that we've been talking about on the show, if we're hurting and if we don't have all these things aligned, then we're not going to be able to show up for ourselves, and we're not going to be able to show up for other people in our relationships. So like these things matter so that you actually get into a state of consciousness, a mindset where you feel really good. So then that's going to, you know, translate to the rest of your relationship. So I think that's the tie-in, obviously. Totally. But then also I feel like so many people have lost their power over their life. We've talked about different experiences we've had, and we want people to like, and this is a balance too, because I'm a big component of like letting go and letting God, for me anyway, or like I love to live life the way of like when I look at a bird in the sky, like to me, birds don't fly, they're flown. And when I live that way, it's fantastic. But then the balance sometimes where we can take control of certain things, that we can. And I know breath is a great one too. But even what I loved about what you guys are talking about to kind of like tie this all in a 360 type way was a lot of the things that you guys have done for yourself or for your clients was all about awareness. We were talking about awareness earlier. And I feel like every time we bring more awareness, there's more of a decision point increased or a bigger spotlight on something. To where when that decision point is increased, we have we can make better choices, right?
Exactly.
Within our relationships, with business decisions, whatever it is. And so I like the fact that with breath or with maybe some other things that you guys may think about, it increases that decision point. Whereas normally if you're going to react in a relationship or something, all these things have like increased that decision point to where you're like, I'm going to choose differently this time.
Yeah. Which is the renegade, it's all being a renegade is all about, is like choosing differently.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about this too, if you're listening right now, and I noticed this big time, especially when we went through past programs together, of how much I didn't breathe when we were in an argument, or if there was a tension or there was something frustrating going on between us. And I mean, just try it next time. If you're in a relationship or just any relationship, whether it's family, friends, business, watch your breath when something uncomfortable comes up. Most of the time we are completely holding our breath, and even just taking a second, if someone says something uncomfortable to you or you start yelling at each other, to just like own that space and just take a deep breath. Have you guys experienced that in your relationship at all, and how that's like helped or?
Yeah, totally.
Definitely.
In many ways. And one of our things that we'll do the most often if there is some sort of argument is just to say, like, can we take breaths together? And I've heard people who are like relationship coaches. I've heard people, I think I heard Tony Robbins say jokingly, like, I don't have time to coach every relationship that approaches me, but if I could give a blanket advice to every single relationship, go and breathe with your partner for an hour and sync your breath. And I promise you by the end of the hour, you're going to feel differently about each other.
Yeah.
Especially if you're looking into their eyes too, like the eye gazing is so powerful as well.
And that's where, you talked a lot about control in certain environments and that autonomic nervous system. And that's why breathing is so powerful, because it can just help you tilt and take advantage of that system. So you're either in that fight or flight or that rest and digest mode. And if you're not breathing, you brought up traffic. Traffic is one of my favorite places to like focus on my breath, because the first thing we start to do is we let our shoulders come up towards our ear. We start wanting to yell at people. We're getting this fight, flight, sympathetic state. My favorite thing is to try taking long breaths and just look at them and smile. Wave. Because you can start to take advantage of your physiology. I'm presented with this environment, but I can still stay calm, cool, collected, look at the whole picture, and make a good choice. That's why I like ice training too, because in the most extreme environments, can you focus on your breath? Can you stay calm? Can you tell your body, hey, it's going to be okay. We're just going to be here for like a few minutes and then we're going to be out.
And ice training, you mean like cold plunges, right?
Stuff like that.
Yeah, which is so powerful. And I love that we're talking about, choosing differently, or like renegade moments, because that's what we're going to get into next in our next break. We're going to leave a little cliffhanger here. We're going to get into our renegade moment section, where we're going to ask both Doc Jen and Doc Dom what renegade moment and or what big breakthrough moment that they had in their life, and they're going to share it with us. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. You're listening to Relationship Renegades on Fun for Life Radio. All right, welcome back to Relationship Renegades on Fun for Life Radio. We are getting into the renegade moment. So, this is one of our favorite segments, because it's when we get a lot of times some really powerful stories, which we love. So, who wants to go first?
Just Dr. Dom first.
Renegade moment?
Yeah, renegade moment. So renegade moment meaning like a moment that you want to share, because I'm sure we all have many, where you were really chose differently, or you went against the grain, or you were able to break old patterns, or have some sort of big breakthrough.
Just breakthrough where like you became a different person, or you just life changed. Yeah.
I'll share one that's like, I've got some obvious ones that I've shared a little bit more. One that's probably more recent to 2020. Emilio, you were talking about like, we spend a lot of time trying to become something, and we think that is the stage that we are creating this thing that we're going to become. And, for a long time in life, I think that most people have this idea in their minds, like, this is what I've been working for. This is, what I've put all this effort into. And, a couple years ago, I didn't even know Jen at this point. And so I was still in that stage of, I'm doing all this work because I'm going to have this life that looks this way, right? And when you spend most of your life thinking that, and then a big, you'd say curveball, but that then gets smashed out of the park comes your way. And I decided to make the choice and move out to California and start this life with Jen. And that's when, rather than, I don't know the exact terminology you use, but like trying to become something, and then instead you just live, and rather like the bird is then just flown. Like you start realizing this reality that really fills most of, like, if not all of the core like values and needs that I had always been searching for in that end game, just looked a little bit different. And in this year where my job seeing people in person went away really fast, there was this blessing of an opportunity where I got to work more closely with Jen, to grow and collaborate on what she had been doing with the Optimal Body membership and create the podcast. And so just this pivot moment really of not trying to make anything and not trying to force anything too hard, and really just living out what's right in front of you. I like to say it's the death of the ego of what you think your life is going to be.
For sure.
And just instead of living out the best reality that's sitting in front of you. And that's been a really cool way to strengthen in our partnership, strengthen in my life, and feel really fulfilled in what I'm doing. It's been a really fun year.
Yeah.
No, I think,
and you hit it on the...
I just had this picture, right? Like, could you imagine you're walking through life and you have a very set thing of what your life is going to look like or should look like, right? And then you find this beautiful, right? It's true. Beautiful,
seriously, right?
This beautiful woman that shows up and she's like, here I am, come live, create this life with me. And what if you're like, no, I'm sorry, my life has to look this way. I can't go outside the box. I can't do anything differently, like that. But you could have chose that, like you absolutely could have. And I could imagine that there are times in our life where we're so stuck on what we think it should be that we're not open to even greater or other possibilities. And so I love that you shared that, because that's exactly what the renegade, that renegade moment is all about. So
yeah, and it's like you were wondering what it was. It's just that's that Superman, right? So like whether it's the Superman or false self or illusion or the ego, it's just like death of that. Like people constantly are in the ego centered, I'm not good enough, I don't have enough, or I'm better than mentalities. And it's like, no, just we're all going to have a death of that, if you will, in one way or another. And what a blessing in disguise to be able to be like, and I think for you, you said it looked differently. And I was joking around, but I'm not joking. Like, I feel like I used to be a control freak, and I think if we had planned everything out constantly, and I still kind of plan to some degree, but it's like, it would be boring, I feel like, because it's like, it's nice when you have this unknown. Like, I've appreciated and loved the unknown even more now, because it's like, wow, what's going to happen next? Like, I'm like in love with it now. Whereas I was not that 100% like 6 years ago.
It's so interesting, actually, because we have a very similar kind of story as well, because Emilio also moved from a different place over to Los Angeles when I showed up out of nowhere.
That's right.
And you absolutely could have chose different, which
For
is
sure.
really, when we can always choose different. Jen, getting into yours, what's a renegade moment you want to share?
I mean, I think my biggest one that really was just so pivotal was being released from that last relationship. And we already kind of talked about that, but that is really what allowed me to step into that allowance of flow and what will come next based on who I truly am now. And because before, and I don't know if it was, growing up as a gymnast and everything was about being perfect for me. From the gymnast to getting my doctor of physical therapy to looking a certain way to like everything had to be perfect. And I, through life have been able to shed insecurities and open up so many layers, but then releasing myself from that relationship really allowed me to truly step into me. And that's when I was able to meet this incredible man who I was able to fully be me and say what I wanted and say what I felt and not be afraid. Like I was so afraid to truly be myself and embody that. And it's led to him working with me and opening up the business in so many other ways, which just only blossomed and just blown my mind. And then to now like having a house that we bought without even seeing it. And it's just like all these things that have just continued to open.
Some great chapters.
But they're so so beautiful. And it's being in that flow and allowance because I'm allowing myself to truly be seen in me.
I feel like we're living out such similar journeys in completely different ways. But also, I just resonate with that so much growing up a gymnast and having all those things that you had in very similar kind of time frames and relationships and chapters of life. It's just so cool and so beautiful. I think if anyone out there listening, like, part of the show is just to inspire hope, that love, that is so supportive and so beautiful and so authentic, where you can really be yourself as possible, and I think both Jen and I, and probably Emilio and Dom, have all had times where we really lost hope, or it was really, really hard. And, especially if you're coming out of a relationship or you're going through a breakup right now, we just want to give you a big hug and let you know that, like, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And what you're going through right now, like Jen said, might be one of the best things that ever happened to you if you allow it to be so. But it is in that allowance, right? You can also choose to not let it be, and you can force and push and put walls up, but it will only lead to more pain. It will only lead to more toxic relationships. So it is in that being like, all right, I'm going to be a renegade right now, and I'm going to allow for this to actually be a beautiful, amazing experience, even though it's really freaking hard. And I love the way that you said to finally be seen, and I don't know about you guys, maybe you guys can share, and maybe for those listening, like, I remember, and it kind of goes in roller coasters at times, but like, there's times where I want to be seen and there's times where I don't want to be seen. And when I'm going through a lot of like deep inner work, where I'm kind of evolving more and more and more, because we're all going to grow through life, right? And when I'm at that stage where I'm having more chaos and reorganization, is what I call it, where I'm like, okay, there's a lot of stuff going on right now, I feel like I'm about to kind of step into a new kind of level. A lot of times, like, I don't want to be seen, whether it's like at least that's what's kind of boiling up, just within me. And so whether it's with Rachel or with friends, or like in a group that I'm in, or a program that I'm in. And then, of course, finally, when that other wall or character that I found that I'm kind of resisting or whatever goes down, then I'm like fully seen, and I'm so scared to be seen. But obviously, every single time people see who you really are, we're like, where the heck have you been? This is so beautiful, And it's like, I don't know why it's so scary, sometimes. And I guess I could find out an answer, but I don't know, just like open, like right now, like, why do you think it's so scary for like us to like fully show who we really are? Like what comes to mind? Like, I don't know. It's like, it's a true, like I could come up with an answer, but it's like, what, I wonder if it's always like, if it's deeper, because it's like, I don't know. So I guess that's just kind of an open-ended question. Like, do you guys ever feel that way or felt that way in the past or through different times? And let's just like talk about that openly, because I know for sure, depending on if I'm going through something, there's just different times of life where something happens and all of a sudden I just want to hide, or other times I'm like, look at me, like there's just, it comes and goes.
Like, I'll give an example. To maybe just open this up a little bit more. We were talking about trust earlier, and it's a long story, so I'm going to really kind of wrap it up in a little bow here with a quick story. But it was during a time early in this year, we were in this program together, Rachel and I, and we had a person living with us at the time. He's our creative director, a good friend of ours, and there was certain things that Rachel and him were doing, like for business, and like they were laughing together, they were playing together, they had ridden bikes to Malibu and got in a green shop to talk more business and do all this kind of stuff, and it was all like legit stuff. But like, stuff was coming up for me, and I'm like, man, and Jeff, our buddy and our creative director, he at the time had a past situation where same living situation, and he had like was with a couple and then ended up like sleeping with the woman and having that, and actually getting into a relationship with for years and years, and it was this whole like thing, and it was like, and that certainly was not happening. So it wasn't that. It was just more of like, oh man, my trust issues, because I'd been cheating on in the past a lot, was coming up, whether it was with Rachel or Jeff, I forget, because it's kind of past now and I'm not like, it's not resonant anymore. But at the time I was like, there's stuff coming up, right? And I'm just like, oh, and normally we would bring things up right away, but this one I chose for like 24-hour period to kind of it boil up a little bit, and couldn't sleep that one night. And long story short, we had a group call the next day, and I didn't want to talk about it, but it was boiling up, and I brought it up, and it ended up being like, as always, like the man in the mirror, the woman in the mirror, like it you know, like we see who we are, we see what we are a lot of the times. And so it was like, I actually didn't trust myself. And, you know, with a lot of stuff that I still had to like, there was still some residue there, I guess. And in that, I guess maybe I didn't want people to know that about me or see that about me. And so maybe that's, I guess,
fear of judgment.
The fear of, so it's a fear of judgment. And so, you know, as I broke down, you know, people saw more. And I think in building brotherhood or building friendships and building whatever, like people, like I've been in men's circles where they tell the most craziest thing. And you would think like, oh, I don't want to be friends with him. You ask the question in that group, who trusts this man more or who loves this man more? And everyone's like, oh, yeah, like there's this connection. And it's like, what are we afraid? Because they were so honest and open and vulnerable. So like, no matter what it was, it could be the craziest shit. Like I killed this, you know, maybe, I don't know, like whatever it is. No, but like it just, there's a deep bond and connection at that point that I think if people knew that more so, even more, that they would like, hopefully be more open to building connection and community more so in a world that's so, I don't know, disconnected right now, you know, in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think that, I mean, for me, that just resonates so much because that is a big thing. I think the fear of judgment of what someone's going to say or what they're going to think, and I don't want to hurt them, and I don't want to do this, and or maybe it's just on me, and I don't want people to think this way of me or whatever. And so we get so afraid to really even step in and start to explore deeper where that could be. And like I know, and speaking into like that, all of a sudden you trust them more because they said the thing.
Yeah.
You know, and I've been in relationships where I kept pressing because I'm like, there's something deeper. Like, I know this. Yeah. And then they say something that was probably hurtful, but I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, because you finally said the thing that I knew.
Yes.
But you're not wanting to admit. You know, but it gives me, now I have more trust. Now I have more faith in it. And so I mean, for me, radical acceptance, being able to fully step in, where is that fear really coming from? That's been, it's a constant question, and it is going to come in waves. I don't think it's ever been perfect for me.
Yeah. I mean, one of the books that I kind of think of that illustrated this really well for me it's called Love is Letting Go of Fear, I think.
I like that title a lot.
Yeah, his name's like Dr. Jill Jablonski or something like that. But it was a fun name. Yeah. And he just talks a lot about how most of the things that we feel, like these fears, and he classified them either as like guilt or fears. And guilt is usually about something that happened in the past, because you're thinking about something in the past and then it brings up a guilt, or something that happened in the past that now gives you this fear of the future. And a lot of times when you share something like you just brought up, Emilio, like you're either in an environment growing up where a guy's going to say, oh, that's not something you share, or, you know, we might have a fear from the past that makes us think a certain way about that, or, oh, I shared this with a friend once and they really just like told me I was an idiot or a wuss or something.
Right.
And so like, no, I'm not going to share that, right? Yeah. And so I think that we create those fears based on something that's happened in our past, and then we pinch ourselves in the present, and we're not able to be present and just feel the love that is generally in the room that we're not open to. So it's more about that belief in ourselves. It's like, are we open to the opportunities in this room to be accepted and loved in that space? Or are we just fearful of the potential, even if it's unlikely, of something going bad or negatively?
Well, I think that's that through line of the show, right, of how can we co-create a world where we all feel more safe, seen, heard, and loved. And I think it is a two-way street, because if I don't have that for myself, I can't fully have that for someone else. Like if I don't allow space for myself to feel safe, seen, heard, and loved within my own internal world, I'm never going to be able to create that for someone else, and vice versa. And if I don't create a safe space for someone to be honest with me, like if Emilio tells me a hard truth and I'm like, oh, well, too bad, see you later, like, or I make some sort of judgment, then I'm not creating a safe space for, why would he be honest with me? And I think I had that in a big time in past relationships where I had my own issues of not being honest because I was so scared of hurting them or how they would judge me. But then in the same token, that space was never created in the first place. And so I think it's always there's always two sides to everything. And as we get more on this topic, I want to take a quick little break before we come back, because I want to hear from Doc Jen and Doc Dom what your favorite finds are for people that are listening. And that could be a book, a poem, a workout, an app, anything you guys want to share, a program that you've created, and a favorite find that's really helped you. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. You're listening to Relationship Renegades on Fun for Life Radio.
First off, I just want to say thank you so much to all of our listeners for tuning in always to Relationship Renegades on Fun for Life Radio. We love you. Thank you for all the support. We truly want to be the rising tide that lifts all boats and really co-create a world where healthy relationships are the new norm. We definitely need them more than ever. So right now is a special break because, as some of you may know, I'm a part of a metal men's group. And it's about 600 men all over the world, international group of grounded, heart-centered men up to big things in the world, making big impact. And in the Christmas spirit, you know, this week is the Christmas week. Coming up on Friday is Christmas Day. And so a little history here. So in 2020, a group of these friends of metal decided to create a feel-good Christmas tune to share with the world, and to help bring also clean water to the poorest country in the world, Nigeria. Now, hailing from all over the world, their common bond is a passion for personal growth, intellectual challenge, and social transformation. Their backgrounds: media, entertainment, technology, arts, and leadership. Their name is called the Mighty Goodfellas, and they're a team of nearly 40 heart-centered men and truly rock stars and everyday heroes who have worked through the difficulties of our unique times to pull this project together. Now, this is a historic effort produced by the heroes of metal music entertainment, which is spelled H-O-M-M-E. Now, the song, guys, that I'll be playing for you guys is called A Feel Good Christmas. And the lyrics are by James Golding, who is a British recording artist and fashion designer. Also, some of the musicians featured are my metal men brothers here, featuring Chesney Hawkes, a singer-songwriter and #1 selling artist in the 90s. We also have Kenny Aronoff, who is a world-famous drummer, played and recorded with pretty much everybody, from Ringo to Paul McCartney, Bon Jovi, and Sting. We also have Scott Page from Pink Floyd, and we have Freddie Revell, who we joke saying is the only white guy in Earth, Wind, and Fire. So I'm super excited, super humbled, super grateful to be able to play this track for you guys. Without further ado, this is a feel-good Christmas song by the heroes of metal music entertainment. Enjoy, and Merry Christmas.
Christmas time, everyone feel a world of possibility. Golden treasure like the sun, a masterpiece in everyone. I'll give you my love, thicker than our blood. Come dance on the table. On the table. Winter turns to spring, so raise your voice and sing now that we're able. It's Christmas time, keep your heart open wide. It's Christmas time, yeah, we're feeling alright. It's Christmas time, leave your troubles behind, 'cause we're feeling alright now, feeling alright. It's Christmas, yeah. It's Christmas time, yeah. It's Christmas, yeah. Feeling alright now, feeling alright. It's Christmas time, yeah. It's Christmas time, yeah. We're feeling alright. It's Christmas time, leave your troubles behind, 'cause we're feeling alright now, feeling alright.
Merry Christmas. Love around the world.
Christmas time and we wanna feel good. Christmas time and we wanna feel good. Christmas time and we wanna feel good. Christmas time and we wanna feel good.
Merry Christmas.
All right, welcome back to Relationship Renegades on Fun for Life Radio. I'm one of your hosts, Rachel Brooke Smith.
And I'm Emilio Palafox.
And we are here talking with Doc Jen and Doc Dom. Is that cool? Do you guys like going by that? Like the short phrases of that? Or is it Domenic?
They told me they hated it earlier.
I'm saying it the whole time.
He's actually boiling.
Yeah.
Use my whole name.
Are we almost done?
You guys can you can confront us if you want to. It's cool. It's a safe space here.
Yeah, exactly. Be fully honest with us, you know?
Yeah.
Like, but this last and final segment is on favorite finds. So any sort of favorite find you guys want to share, a book, a poem, a podcast, a program, anything that you got, a travel location, anything that you guys want to share that's helped you in any sort of way. Jen, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. One of my favorite books that I continuously go back to, especially if you like want to kind of dive into meditation and stuff, but also want to dive into yourself. Radical Acceptance was one of the first books I ever read, like 8 years ago or something. And she has like these little meditative things at the end of each chapter too, which help you just like identify after you've gone through that chapter. Now, like go into yourself. And that one really just allowed me to feel like if I was jealous, like, okay, you feel it, like don't run from it, actually go into it.
Yeah.
And so that one was such a powerful one.
And that's called Radical Acceptance?
Yeah.
Ooh, I want to read that one. That sounds awesome.
So good. And then I will say, like, if you want to dive more into this breathwork thing that we have talked about and kind of dabbled on, Brian McKenzie is actually one of my mentors in the space of breath, he just continues to do so much research around it. And he's written books, but his even just his Instagram, he gives just baseline ways of how you can start it, how you can use it in exercise, why it works in the body, breaking down the physiology, like all of it. You can find it all on Brian McKenzie. So I would recommend that.
Awesome. Okay, Radical Acceptance and Brian McKenzie. Awesome. All right, what about you?
Yeah, there's lots of things that you could just throw out there. I think if there's anybody looking for an easy book in the personal development space, this is one of the first ones I read. because I had a friend gift it to me. He just said, hey, you say some things that, you know, sound like you'd resonate with this book. And he was right. And the book has just kind of reappeared in my life. I think one, because it's a pretty popular one as far as personal development goes, but it's called The 4 Agreements.
Love that book.
It just has 4 like principles that are really prevalent, the 4 agreements throughout the book. But it's just written in a way for me that speaks to people that surpasses religion, and it's really omnipresent in the way that he speaks about the energy and stuff, and it seems very inclusive. So I think that no matter where you're at spiritually, religious wise, like it's something that is pretty easily digestible and applicable. So I was really blown away by that one.
I love that you said inclusive. I think that's something I've been really passionate about recently, especially in a world that feels so disconnected, of more ways to find things or talk about things that are really inclusive, you know, regardless of what religion you are or what background you come from or belief system, that there's ways and there's things where we can operate in a world where we can, you know, we did a previous episode where we interviewed my parents, and they've been together for 37 years, have 5 kids, and they have completely different belief systems, which for most of the marriage, they had the same. And so it was a very scary, very challenging thing. I mean, I hope everybody gets to listen to that previous episode. It was really powerful. But we talked a lot about like there's a way to still have whatever belief system you have, but be inclusive of allowing others to have different ones, but still loving them regardless. And I think the 4 Agreements really taps into that a lot. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you so much for sharing the favorite finds, guys. If you guys are just tuning in, you're listening to Fun for Life Radio. I'm sorry, you're tuning in. If you're just tuning in, let's scratch that, Dana.
Take that part out. We'll start over and go.
And if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Relationship Renegades on Fun for Life Radio, where we just summed up the favorite finds. But one thing I want to ask too, in addition to, you know, the mobility method that we've been talking about and a lot of the juicy topics that we've been talking about today on the show, I know that you guys have the optimal body, all the things, but I wanted to ask just like in general for you guys, like what does an optimal body really mean to you guys, especially in today's world? And I'd love to hear from both of you guys and just kind of dissect that, especially with what you guys do. I guess we asked Jen last time, Dr. Don, what does that mean to you, have an optimal body?
You know, so I think the optimal body, and the real trick about the optimal body is that you're never looking for one end state even. And, you know, you've kind of thrown out some things about what's it mean to live pain-free. I think living pain-free has nothing to do with feeling pain or not. Living pain-free has everything to do with feeling empowered to be able to do your own daily maintenance on your body and impact the way you feel through your own actions. And, you know, what is that? That can be pretty specific to the person. So, you know, living with the optimal body is living empowered and being able to address those daily things that you might need to be able to do your own daily maintenance, slightly adjust your pain, slightly adjust the way that you're feeling. Jen and I have kind of already mentioned one thing that we recommend for everybody is breath. Find some breath practice, tie that into some sort of mindfulness or mindful practice about how your breath impacts your body and the way you feel. And if you start doing that daily and consistently, I would bet that you'd feel something.
Yeah. And what we always say too is the optimal body truly means whatever optimal is for you. And I think in today's world, we're always searching for the thing, the optimal body, right? Guess what? You're not going to get like the one thing. You're going to get all the things and learn and discover what it means for you. And that's truly what we try to do. Here are all the pieces. Now see what fits in your life and is needed for your body. And, you know, when you start to really continue to open up awareness, you'll start to see where you've been neglecting and what you get to pay more attention to. And you get to find your optimal body.
I love that.
Boom is right. Boom, boom. Shooter McGavin over here.
So I think that's really cool because we talk a lot about on the show, like disrupting the perception of pain. That a lot of times, you know, as humans, we're like, oh, pain is bad. Pain is bad. Don't feel pain. But on so many levels, pain is one of our greatest teachers, both emotional pain and physical pain together. And so, like you said earlier, rather than, you know, that feeling of jealousy that you felt, even though it was a painful feeling, rather than running away from it, you ran towards it. So how can people that are living in both, you know, physical pain, especially physical pain, because I think with emotional pain, we know how to, or it's maybe a little bit easier to be like, okay, if I'm feeling jealous, I can lean into this feeling rather than run away from it. And I can, do the journaling and do the breath work. For physical pain, how can people, rather than running away from the pain or being scared of the pain, learn from it?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing is not to be scared of it. We've been conditioned to believe that it's bad, right?
Yeah.
Exactly like you said. It's not bad. It's an alarm system. What would be bad is if you didn't feel it. Then you don't know if you need to address something, right? And so starting to appreciate when your body is signaling to you. It's like our stomach grumbles and we know we need to eat. We're yawning. We know we need to sleep. Shoulder is kind of sharp and achy. Okay, I know I've been neglecting some upper back mobility. I know I haven't been lifting. I know I haven't been, whatever it may be. Like, what are the things you've been neglecting? And the reason why your body could be talking to you. And I think when we start appreciating the pain rather than fearing the pain and being so scared of it, we're able to look at it in a bigger scope as well, because we're always trying to chase that one spot of pain and have the thing that's going to put the Band-Aid to make it go away. But if we continue to chase that one symptom, we're going to be left, really just continuing to search and going doctor to doctor to doctor, because no one's like ever helping me, and it's not the doctor. It's diving in and finding the doctor who's going to guide you into your body.
Yeah, that's so powerful. I really want to when we have this episode, use that specific piece, because I think it's so powerful both from a physical standpoint and an emotional standpoint, that pain is a great alarm system, that something is off and it needs more attention. And if we could all just, have a different perception, because perception is just everything, right? If I have the perception that a past story was that, oh, men hurt me, then I that's the lens I'm looking through until I have the awareness of oh, there's pain here, but I can do something about it. Kind of bringing back what you said, empowerment to independence, empowerment to this freedom that, if you're listening right now, we hope this show has just inspired hope that there are things that you can do, simple things, really. It's just simple things done over and over and over and over again until it becomes a lifestyle that really, really work, that help enable to aches and pains. Literally, I'm not kidding you. I had an ache and pain kind of in my groin area, and I watched one of Jen's Instagram's videos, and I saw some different exercises that I had never seen before that were super simple. I could do it with a couch at my home. And I started doing it, and I in the first time I did it, I was like, oh, my leg feels better. My whole kind of inner thigh area felt something it had never felt before. And so I just really encourage people to go check out Jen's work. It's DocJen on Instagram.
DocJenFit.
DocJenFit on Instagram. Okay. DocJenFit on Instagram. And then also the other program ones are Mobility Method. And why don't you tell everybody where they can find you?
Right before we wrap up the show that way, I just wanted to say it's been a pleasure to have you guys here. And one of the things I really appreciate you guys, not only for the work that you guys are doing in the world, but just the way that you guys show up, whether it's now with us or just on Instagram. And I think you guys just have a light and a vibrancy and a youthfulness and just a playfulness, which is big too, because I feel like people are constantly going through the motions and working too much. And I can certainly raise my hand at the time. And so when I see you guys playing and loving and doing all the things you guys have talked about,
and
I think you guys
vulnerably.
Yeah, all of that. I think it's just one thing. A lot of people have the knowledge, and then there's another level of actually embodying that. And I think you guys do a great job of that. So I just wanted to honor and respect you guys for doing that. Thank you, obviously for being on the show.
Yes.
And for sure, as Rachel was saying, where can everyone find you? And yeah, please do share.
Well, thank you. We so just appreciate the work that you guys are doing, and honored, honestly, to be able to be a little part of it. So thank you for having us.
Yes.
But yeah, DocJenFit, honestly, all the things. Website, YouTube, Instagram is where you're going to find me most often. And if you mention me in something, you're more likely to get a response, because there's just too many people. And the programs that we do are the Mobility Method, if you really just want to dive specifically into mobility, and then the Optimal Body Membership, if you want to go deeper into what is the core, what is breath, how does this work, what is movement, how can I start to explore it more than the Optimal Body Membership.
Okay, and what about you?
Amazing.
I am at Dr. Dom DPT, this Dr. Dom DPT on Instagram, and then again, the Optimal Body Podcast is where we put out a couple episodes a week. We have a PT Pearl every week, which is talking through a specific diagnosis, a specific pain point. The thing that you were mentioning, that exercise, the adductor exercise, that was a whole podcast episode that we did on groin pain. So that's been super fun, putting information out through that. And then all the programs, we're trying to get the programs out to people because that's what's going to help open up people's awareness so that they can take ownership over the things they feel in their body. And once you get to that stage, you can realize that you can also take ownership over the positive things that happen to your body. Yeah. It's just a matter of stringing together all the right actions to get to that point.
Yeah, so definitely go check them out, guys, because I think what you guys are doing is just so profound, because so many times it's so easy to just feel hopeless. If you have, I know at different times, I still have this like lower back pain that I'm like, okay, I really want to go through their programs and work with them to figure it out, because I felt before it was like this really scary feeling of like, oh my gosh, what if I'm not able to walk? Like there was one day where I literally had to lay on my back and I was just in tears and almost panic mode. And to know that there is a place to go, you guys, where people can find real, like, valid information and helpful exercises that they can do at home, rather than have to, like, even, don't necessarily, I mean, it's still a good thing, but have to, go, to an office or go get some supplement. Like, there are really things that can help. So thank you for the work you do in the world. Are there any last words that you guys want to leave people with before we close out?
Hakuna Matata.
That was so good.
I thought you were going to do a Wim Hof, like, breathe, motherfucker.
Shut up.
Yeah, right.
Hakuna Matata.
I love it.
I love it. That's so good. Jen?
Hey, I'll close with that.
Yeah.
That's a great one. That sums it all up.
It really is. Awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening. Again, you've been listening to Relationship Renegades on Fun for Life Radio. I'm one of your hosts, Rachel Brooke Smith.
And I'm Emilio Palafox.
And we've been talking with Doc Jen and Doc Dom. Make sure and go check them out on all their social channels. They're incredible. And stay tuned for next week. And just remember, there is hope. And we hope you can join us in creating a world where we all feel a little bit more safe, seen, heard, and loved.
Love you guys.
See you next time.